Good evening, and welcome to UK Crime Book Club. You can see I haven't done one for a while. I had about a month off, sort of doing these. So this is the first time I've been back for a while. So delighted this evening to be joined by Lou, and Lou is going to be talking about her political thriller novels that she's writing or written. We'll come back to that as well. So hi Lou, thank you for joining us this evening. And would you like to introduce yourself and your fantastic books?
Yeah, okay. So I'm Lou Gilmond. I write political thrillers that are a little bit about AI and how AI is kind of following us and tracking us and watching us, or is it? And they are set in the world of Westminster, so kind of all amongst the sleazy politics. But actually, they focus on two kind of good-hearted politicians who are trying their best to fight through all the sleaze and actually sort of stand up for the rights of people. And they're really all about that feeling that our tech is watching us. You know, is our phone tracking us? Is our tech listening to us? And if so, who's out there and who's listening to it? And are they joining up the dots? And what do they know about us? And so that's kind of the theme of the book. But really, the books are also kind of for enjoyment. They are a thriller. They've got lots of twists and turns, and they've got jeopardy, and they've got kind of a page-turning race to the end sort of feel to them. So yeah, so the first one is called Dirty Geese. The second is called Palisade, and the third is called Divinity Games. Yeah.
Yeah, so as you said, so there's 3 in the series. This is the second. The first one, so you can read them as standalone. I think it's because I've just read this one as a standalone, but as I was saying to you before we came on, I wish I'd read the first one now, so I'm going to have to go back, because the other thing that we won't give too many spoilers away, but what I will say is this one ends on somewhat of a cliffhanger.
It does, yeah.
So I'm like, when's the next one coming out?
It's coming out in July, yes. So I'm just waiting to finish it now. Yeah.
That's like for ages. And actually, I've got some friends who said that they really love it, have been, because I hadn't come across your series before, so it's been a real treat to find a new author. And political thrillers, what sort of drew you to that genre?
Well, I guess I had a period in my life where I sort of worked in that area for a while, kind of lobbying and speaking to MPs and ministers and senior civil servants, and even in and out of Number 10 a little tiny bit. So I'd sort of been involved in that world enough to kind of understand the different characters of all those different parties. And I really wanted to set my books with a kind of an unlikely hero or an unlikely heroine. Yeah. And a lot of, obviously we read a lot about sleaze. And I must admit, I started doing research for the book, thinking I might set it in this world on sleaze. And I ended up with pages and pages and pages of all these different terrible things that MPs had done. Yeah. And so I was determined that actually I would have, my heroes would be kind of, good honourable members. Actually, they were a little bit different. So Harry Colby, he is definitely a good-hearted, very honourable member. And then he sort of teams up with Esme Karma, who's a chief whip, and she has a slightly edgier side to her, so she doesn't mind bending the odd rule. So they make a good partnership.
Yeah, no, I really like the characters. I think that that was probably the thing that I just wanted that little bit more to know about them, because obviously when you come in at the second book, you give a brief overview, but obviously that there's a lot more to them, and how has it come to that they've got to this place. So when you sort of started, did you always know that it was going to be a series? Did you start from the outset?
Totally not. No, I wrote Dirty Geese intending it to be a total standalone. It was just a story that I had in my head that I really wanted to get out there. I really wanted to explore that area of, is our phone listening to us? Is it tracking us? That was an area I really wanted to look into. So I wrote Dirty Geese as a way of sort of almost getting that out of my system, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then I got to the end of it, and so many people said to me, but what happens next? What happens next? What happens to these characters? Wow. I want to see more of them.
Yeah.
And then I got to thinking, well, what does happen next? And so then Palisade was born, and I started writing Palisade, and I knew the story that I wanted to tell with Palisade was too long for one book. So I kind of wanted to break it into two, and yet still make Palisade enough of a standalone that someone could read it and enjoy the whole book, and come to the end and know that they've come to the end. But almost a little bit like The Empire Strikes Back, the second of the three original Star Wars trilogies, that they get to the end of it and go, okay, that's been a great narrative arc, and we've come to the end of it, and wow, what an ending! But oh my goodness, I really want to know what the next chapter is, what happens next.
Exactly,
that was always my intention,
Because that must have been quite a challenge, actually, to sort of start. Because quite often people say, oh, well, I started writing book one and I realized that, like you said, it was too big to be, so that's why 2 and 3 came along. But to sort of get to the end of one and then sort of have to, I guess that's a testament to your sort of characters and your writing, that you could sort of find enough for them to, reinvent themselves and come, and to make 2 more books.
Yeah, I think the books also look at slightly different aspects of this whole question of whether we are being watched by our phones and our emails are being read and listened to and passed through. So, and very much when I wrote Dirty Geese, ChatGPT hadn't. It was before ChatGPT kind of in 2022 was launched and actually introduced AI really to the wider world. So at the time, AI, when I was writing the book, was very much a sort of a niche subject that most people didn't really know that much about. Yeah. So when I wrote that very first book, it was very much focused on the idea that there might be some companies out there nefariously joining up all the dots and figuring out, who we are and what makes us tick, and building up a digital profile of us. So that's that first book focused on that. But then the second book much more looks at the aspect of surveillance. So once you have this system that knows everything about us, actually, if you attach it to CCTV cameras, that are following us, our phones that are tracking us, and you have a government that's working with a big tech in a nefarious way, in a big tech company, then what does that kind of mean for us? So book one was sort of focused on that digital profiling of us, and book two, so that was Dirty Geese, and Palisade, it's focused on a different aspect, which is that surveillance aspect of what happens when a government goes slightly wrong and starts to work with that big tech company to monitor its citizens.
And it's quite scary, isn't it, actually? I mean, we all sort of, like you said, we all have that sort of thing about, is Alexa listening to me? You talk about something on your phone, and then the next day you get an advert come up for something that you've been talking about really weirdly. Or quite often I'll be talking to my husband and then I'll get things coming up that he's been talking about on my phone. So there is definitely that. And I was sort of interested in the research of, did that make you even more anxious when you started researching it?
Yes, it's terrible. Now, my family, I'm just forever like, no listening tech in the house, no Alexas, no this, no that. So they all get generally totally fed up with me. So yes, it definitely does sort of start to seep in, because the more you research and the more you understand, you start to understand that actually I kind of have a little phrase that not everything that is known is shown. So, we might say something and then there's an advert, comes onto our phone an hour later and you think, well, they must have heard me. Probably they didn't hear you, but probably they just have built up such an understanding of who you are and what you're doing and where you're going, and they being, the great they in the sky. That actually they probably don't need to hear you say it, because they probably already know that
you're going to look up,
you're about to go shoe shopping.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I think I've got an Alexa. I've got 2 Alexas actually, but she was getting very familiar and kept on calling me by my name. So I took that off of, I took that off of her profile so that she can't record my voice anymore, so that she doesn't know who I am. But I'm sure it's probably there somewhere. But I just thought, well, this is really creepy. I don't want her talking to me. It's just like, you can say hello and what's the weather, but I don't want you addressing me by my first name.
Particularly now you've read Palisade, probably even more so.
Exactly. And the thing is, sort of things, even it's thinking about, I recently read 1984 for the first time, to my shame. And that was sort of, you know, that sort of Orwellian sort of, you know, his, you know, the big brother is watching. I mean, really, it's very, you know, he was so ahead of his time for that. And you think sort of how that has sort of come about, and that sort of public security, and in Palisade they use that, don't they, as the fear, isn't it? It's the fear that gets people, why people think that it's the best thing for them. Because the government, obviously, I mean, we don't always believe the government, but but if the government is saying we need this to be safe, then it must be true. So that's quite interesting, isn't it, how that sort of you sort of look at that, in, you know, interpret that, and how it's people within your characters who challenge that view, that, you know, that it's just not going to happen.
Yes, it's very true. And I guess what I play with in the books is just that feeling of how quickly you can slide from normality. I mean, I guess we had it all with the pandemic, you know, how quickly you can slide from just our normal everyday lives, not thinking something strange around the corner is about to come, to actually a very strange situation where, you know, where our lives are, you know, fundamentally altered our day-to-day lives, and certainly in Divinity Games in the third series it moves into that territory very much more, where yes, the government are in this instance are not acting in the best interest of their citizens, and are using that same fear that you have in 1984 that Orwell uses to control their citizens. I mean, but you know, obviously it's in 1984, but actually, you know, you can see it in other states in the world. I think sometimes, you know, the biggest horror for, you know, for books that you read is sometimes something actually that might be happening genuinely somewhere else in the world. So to trying to kind of bring that in, you know, the Chinese surveillance and different other countries that use surveillance,
and censorship as well, isn't it? Like that sort of, you know, the sort of the state being in charge of, you know, what you listen to and what you know, what you can see and what you can't see. And I mean, it's really, I mean, I can see why, you know, you've been able to write a series out of it, because I imagine and I guess because AI is developing all the time and becoming much more, you know, sort of clever, and we're feeding it more information, that's only going to grow, isn't it? And I guess that side of it is, you know, is something that I think probably we all should be aware of.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's really interesting that you mentioned 1984. I mean, I guess a lot of what happens in the book is there starts to be effectively cameras everywhere, because you have, first we have, London has now got delivery drones everywhere. So you have cameras with the delivery drones, and you have CCTV cameras that also listen. And then you have these little listening eye stickers that these people called the mobsters are going around sticking everywhere, that can, in public places, in bars, in offices, where they can actually tune in and then listen to what people are saying. So the world becomes, you know, a very nosy place. And I guess, you know, I was probably inspired by that scene in 1984 where Winston goes off out to the forest, because he tries to get away from all the listening devices. And sometimes I feel like that in my own home, you know, I kind of look around and I'm like, oh my God, please, could I just sit in a room where I know I'm going to speak and there isn't anything that's going to listen to me.
I think you touched on it in the book as well. It's just not phones, is it? There's so many things that listen to you now. You know, you have smart TVs and smart washing machines, and I saw there was a thing in the news the other day about smart coffee machines and how they could be listening to you when you're at work. You know, if you've got a smart.
There was another one about air fryers.
Oh, really?
Air fryers, like tracking people. It's like, really, do we really need this for our air fryer?
The thing is like, when, you know, going back to 1984, but going back to your book as well, is, you know, people say that it's fiction, but actually it's you know, it isn't just fiction, is it? I mean, you can see how easily it could just turn to, you know, and particularly in this book, you're talking about like the, you know, the person, the tech company who's got sort of that, you know, sort of Machiavellian, you know, view and what they want to do. And that, I mean, I know we all love a villain, and it must be quite fun to write a villain. Did you find that in your writing? Was that sort of interesting to do that side of it?
Yeah, definitely. I actually sort of started with the villains. So when I started writing Dirty Geese, the first one, way back in 2015, 16.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and I think even then I was starting to be uncomfortable about what certain social media companies were doing in terms of tracking. Because I had an account with them tracking me across different platforms. And
Yeah.
even then I was starting to feel, and so I guess I did have this sort of image in my mind. So it wasn't supposed to be based on any specific, big tech CEO or owner or founder.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't. But actually, when I started looking into them and researching them, it was amazing how many links there are between the top bods of tech companies and politicians, both in the UK and in America,
Yeah.
and it wasn't so Henri Laveau, the baddie, he's not really supposed to be based on any one.
No.
Uh, yeah,
It's like a
tech.
hybrid.
He is a hybrid, yeah, of all the different things that are happening. And
Yeah.
actually, I deliberately make him French, mostly because then I'm really distancing myself from any suggestion that it is some Silicon Valley
Yeah.
company chief exec or owner.
Yeah.
By deliberately making him French. So.
Well, yeah, because you want it. The thing is with fiction is that you want it to be, so people, when people read it, they don't think it's, this isn't a non-fiction book. This is a story. This is, this is imagination, and it's an imagination of what could happen. And the thing is with a good story is that you can imagine that it could happen. That's the whole point, isn't it? Is you don't want something so far-fetched that you think, well, that would never happen in a million years. You want to come out of it feeling like, oh, that's made me feel really uncomfortable. I must go and
Yeah.
turn my Alexa off.
It's very true. A lot of people have said that they thought the book is terrifying, and they don't really mean the kind of thrills and spills and jeopardy. I mean, I think they enjoy that, but actually they mean it's terrifying just how they can see how close this future
Yeah.
is to our reality. It literally is, in 5 minutes time or tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's you can see us so easily being there. And
Yeah.
actually, the one thing that I thought that was really futuristic in the book is that I use drones in London as being delivery. So I've sort of set it in a sort of a tomorrow where everyone has finally got fed up with London streets being completely clogged with white drivers, white van drivers and the Uber drivers. Not anything against them, but just London does seem to have ground to a halt recently. And so some bright spark has said, well, let's replace, let's do delivery drones. And I thought that was really futuristic. And, everyone's going to go, this is sci-fi, this isn't reality. And then literally just the other day, I saw in the paper that they have started using delivery drones to deliver blood between the different hospitals. I think it's Guy's Hospital.
Oh, really?
Hospital. Yeah, they've started to use drones for that. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's here already.
Because again, the drones in your book, they're used for other, other motives, aren't they? They're not used for delivering blood between hospitals. They're delivering other things. So
yes, it's true.
So yeah, I mean because I think I live in the country here in Devon, so we don't really. I mean, people do use drones. I know, like estate agents use them to take photos and things. Mm-hmm. When we went on holiday to Wales a couple of years ago, the people next door had one, and they were like flying over the top of our holiday, and I really didn't feel comfortable with that. But I imagine that like hundreds of them sort of flying around, thousands of them. It must be, it's really quite freaky, really.
Yeah, I guess, drone technology has moved on massively because I think certainly to do with, because of Ukraine, and the conflict there.
Yeah.
It's sadly, warfare always seems to be the way that this technology jumps forward. And there's been a lot of research and investment into drones and making them nimble, and also linking drones to AI so that AI can kind of run multiple drones at the same time and effectively create drone swarms. So all of that, it feels very futuristic and very far away, but actually, it's already here.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing. I said in my notes, I put that your books have a lot of suspense and tension, and it does make you. I think I felt it made me more anxious than scared, but I think it's because it is so realistic that it's sort of set in a contemporary world. It's a lot of things in the book you'll recognize and think, well, I'm in that space now. We're not talking about, sort of things that, we're not talking about probably how 1984 was perceived all those years ago. We're talking about something that you can just think, well, actually, yeah, I know what a drone is. I know what this is. I can see that CCTV does this. And yeah, I think that's sort of fascinating. And I think probably why it's been received so well is that people like to be, I don't know, it's sort of, you want to be unnerved, don't you? But you want to be gripped as well. And I think that's the sort of the essence of this book is it's scary, but it's also gripping.
That's certainly how I hoped it would be. So I'm really happy to hear that you think that is the case.
I definitely did. How do you sort of plan that when you're writing? So, how is your sort of process with your writing? So when you sort of started out, you didn't obviously have a plan for the 3 books, but so do you have are you a plotter? Do you know where you're going? How have you sort of gone about it?
I always know for a book how it starts and how it's going to end. I have almost like the grand finale in my head, and I usually have a few kind of key scenes that I really want to make sure I include, and then I get going, and then I do endless research, and as well when I do the research into all the different technology that's kind of nascent, that's just coming out, then that kind of tends to ping ideas. So what I tend to do is do loads of notes, and then when I read through my notes, I think, oh, we could add that in, and oh, that would make a really good little scene there. Adding this one in. So then I have lots and lots of different ideas like that. And then I get writing, and then I must confess I have a spreadsheet where I'm quite a plotter. So I put it all down in a spreadsheet, exactly the order of what everything's going to happen. And then I'm really careful every chapter to make sure, is this a compelling enough chapter to make somebody want to read more? And and then and quite often what I'll do is then I'll be out walking the dogs, and suddenly something will come to me and I'll think, oh yeah, that's a brilliant twist. Let's put that in. And so then I get my phone out and start typing and write down this little note, and then the dogs are standing there like this, sort of really bored.
What's she doing?
So she's doing it again. And then when I get home, and I put the little twist in. And sometimes I have to go back and change what past chapters in order to make the twist work, sort of thing. So then I try and make sure I do put enough twists in that it's constantly moving the story forward and constantly creating kind of jeopardy and excitement. But then I try to mix that in with sort of slightly calmer periods where you can actually get to know the characters a little better, so that it's not a kind of an action book where you're just going action, action, action. You are actually having time for the characters, to get to know the characters and let their personalities shine through.
So actually that leads us very nicely on to my next question, which is about the characters. So how did they come about? How were they based on real people? You mentioned that you'd sort of had experience in sort of political world. Were they, and obviously you were talking about sleaze and these two aren't sleazy. There's mentions of sleaze within, things that have happened, but they are sort of the good guys, aren't they, really?
Yeah. So the character of Harry Colby was with me from the start. Strangely, I think I started with a sort of a conversation between Henri Laveau and Harry Colby, which is in at the end of the Dirty Geese book. So that was actually in a way my starting point. And so Harry Colby for me was always an MP who was tired, who wanted to retire. His wife and he, they'd had their children. They had sort of got bored with each other, but they were just going through the motions. She was having an affair, and that's kind of where I started with him as a sort of an unlikely hero. That sort of ordinary person, ordinary extraordinary situation, who kind of gets dragged into this situation. He's wanting to just retire and have an easy life, and he's disappointed his wife terribly because she wanted him to be super successful because she has all these rich friends that she wants to keep up with, and he's gone and got himself a job as an MP, and then even then he wasn't very successful. He didn't became a minister for a very short time and then got fired, and so 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 she's fed up with him. So that was Harry Colby, and he was kind of there exactly as Harry Colby is through the book, right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then actually I got quite a long way into Dirty Geese with a totally different assistant that he had. He had an assistant who was working with him, who was kind of going to be his sort of sparring partner.
Yeah.
And the character was okay, but there was a sort of this sort of one of the a minor player, you might say, of Esme Kana, and quite a few of my friends who kind of, I've got some writer friends and we workshop each other's work, and a few of them said, oh, we really like this character.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, let's work with her a little more. And then the more I worked with her, the more I thought, actually, no, she's a great character. We have to bring more of her. And so it became this kind of dual protagonist between the two of them. And, and she lives on her own. She has done for many years. She's very, she's very ambitious, and she's a bit of a sort of, she's a very political animal. And so she's a chief whip, worked her way up. And and then there's this sort of will they, won't they, sort of romance between the two of them. I don't want to give anything away, but yeah.
And I really like the characters. I think I sort of, they do work really well together, and they're not sort of, what I would say is, they're not your usual sorts of characters, are you? They've got, they are flawed like everybody is, but yeah, I think I liked him. I thought he does some, he's like he really sort of sticks his neck out, doesn't he, in the book? He really does. For someone who wants an easy life, he doesn't actually have one very much.
He doesn't. No, I mean, he is an honourable member. So I guess the full definition or not a definition, but full title of an MP is the honourable member of Parliament for whatever the area is. And so I always wanted to play with this idea that he's kind of like the last honourable member of Parliament left. So in amongst all the sleaze, he's the one member, and he stumbles upon this kind of conspiracy. And although he's tired, although he wants to retire, he feels anger about it, and he wants to do something about it. So he steps forward. And Esme Kana, as the chief whip, although she's political and ambitious and actually sees, oh, this could actually help me, she actually takes her role quite seriously. So her role as chief whip is to also look after the MPs and to kind of, not only to dig up dirt on them so you can manipulate the MPs, but also to kind of, she sort of sees them as her flock. So they start off with her kind of almost wanting to protect him, but she's also outraged by what she sees and wants to help. So
no, I thought he definitely is that sort of, he's sort of the last bastion of hope, really, isn't he? He's sort of I think it's a really difficult book to talk about without giving too much away.
I sort of see him, as you say, as the last honourable member, the last bastion of hope, and she is his protector. She actually helps him get there. Although of the two, she's the ambitious and political one, and the one who wants.
Well, and he doesn't have an easy ride with trying to be that, does he? Because the sort of the dark forces they don't want him to be that, and they don't want him to be seen as that. So they do everything in their power to try and stop him from, being able to carry out what he wants to carry out.
Yes, and there we have lots of lovely jeopardy and danger and, and chases. And
how do you sort of, when you're writing that, what sort of is your sort of process with, do you sort of, when you sort of start to write a scene or a chapter or however you do it, does that sort of, do you have to sort of put that jeopardy in afterwards? Does it come as you write it? Is it sort of a linear process, or is it much more, like you said, you have the idea, but then you have to go back and sort of think, I need to make that tense, so that would, or that's, people wouldn't believe that, or, I need to to put this in here?
I think a lot of time with these books specifically, I think because I'm feeling that fear of, is the world watching us? Is it listening to us? Because I already have that fear slightly inside me.
Yeah.
When I go and write the scenes, I'm kind of amping up, what happens to these characters because of that. And so I feel like I have that little nugget of fear already in me. So when I put the characters in these situations and I'm writing it, it's almost, I feel like a little bit like I'm living it myself. And so then actually the jeopardy sort of flows quite easily, because I think, well, what if you were walking down the street and there was a drone above your head trying to kill you? Like, what if, you know, you meet someone and they know everywhere you are every minute of the day? What if, you know, you go to, it's so difficult, isn't it, without giving the book away?
It's really difficult.
Yeah.
It is. And I think that sort of, you sort of think about like your movements online, and you know, you just do these things, don't you, that you know, and you don't really ever sort of think about the consequences of what you do. I mean, I know we've all like seen people who've, you know, put some inappropriate photos of themselves, you know, drunk online, and then, you know, it's ended up getting on their boss's desk sort of thing. But this is much darker than this, isn't it? It's much more your personal, you know. And also deep fake, that's something else, isn't it, that's in the book about sort of, and we've sort of started to see that, haven't we, you know, in the, you know, where people sort of, you know, fake videos, and it's so realistic, voices, you know, all that sort of thing with AI. It's terrifying that you're going to know what's real and what isn't real. I think, is that something that you sort of found with the book and research? Is that so, how the lines become blurred?
Yeah, and that is definitely something that I play with kind of more and more, because I think, you know, the more you have, you know, obviously the more these bots on social media and in different places become more sophisticated, you know, the more they can, you know, and now we have AI, generative AI, it's called, that can effectively create drawings and pictures, it's, you know, itself. And you kind of combine those two, a bot that wants to pose as a human being, and that is also able to generate language and conversation and images and pictures. You know, how are you ever going to know whether you're talking to a real person or you're talking to something that isn't a real person? And not even in a scientific, you know, science fiction-y way, you know, some sort of evil monster, but actually just genuinely for real, you know, just in a foreign state, putting a load of bots out there that, you know, everybody's engaging with, not really knowing whether this is actually a person or a bot anymore. You know, I think, you know, deep fake, it's only going to be a matter of time before it's that good, you know. Well, it is quite scary.
Yeah, I think that sort of the chat is really interesting, because more and more companies are using that, aren't they, on their sort of helplines. You know, you have the bot, and then you ask the bot what's going on, and then the bot is normally useless because it doesn't actually know what you want. But as you said, they'll become more sophisticated. So was that something that you sort of did in your research, was sort of like how that's sort of, you know, progressing and how that is sort of being fed, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think possibly also comes from my own experiences. Sometimes, you know, I've had a few cases where I've been trying to sort something out on a customer service sort of chat, and then you're like, I don't know, am I actually talking to a bot, or am I actually talking to a real person?
Yeah.
And I have actually had one sort of slightly long argument with what I thought was a person, and then I was like, "Are you a person or are you a bot?" And they replied and said, "I'm a person." And I was like, "Yeah, but are you a bot saying that you're a person, or are you actually a person?" Going round and round in circles. So sometimes the comedy and the frustration of the world that we're walking into, I try and put in the book as well, just to make it a little lighter.
Yeah. No, I think that, that's sort of, I think, you know, we've all been in those things where we've had that conversation where you're asking, like you say, the customer service is the thing, isn't it? Where you ask, how do I send a parcel back? And then it says, do you want to do this? It's a bit like the old, you know, say what you want on the phone line, and then the phone says, did you mean to ask for 3 pints of milk? And you're like, no, I didn't. Because it doesn't understand your accent, or you know, so that's the thing, isn't it? It's that nuance as well, is really, you know, that's the sort of thing that needs to be ironed out, I guess, is that, you know, and that's the thing at the moment that sort of identifies us to knowing the difference between, but like you say, there will be a point where we don't know the difference anymore, because it will just become, and that's the sort of terrifying thing, isn't it?
Yes, and certainly in Divinity Games, the third in the series, I go into that a little bit more about, we're sort of coming into a world, not walking into a world, coming into a world where, we will have a lot of help from AI assistants,
Yeah.
whether that's with legal advice or with rather than trying to Google doctors, use Google to figure out what's wrong with us and coming up with terrible things. There'll be some bot that we'll talk to, and it will, use language and talk to us like a doctor and help us figure out what's wrong with us. And personal assistants, friends, and people, using an AI bot as someone to talk to online. So, it will be moving into quite an interesting world, and what that will look like. So, that all of that, I spend quite a lot of time thinking about, okay, what is this actually going to mean for us in our daily lives? And I guess what I try and do to make it scary is actually try and keep it real, keep it like people's daily lives. So, so a lot of the times the MPs, bring in their families as well, their families' lives, and just so you can see, okay, this is the reality of like just a normal work, home life as well.
Because I think you touched on then about the sort of personal assistants, and you can sort of see how they would be quite attractive to people to, to be able to sort of help them manage things like appointments or paying their bills or doing all the mundane things that we don't want to do anymore. And I guess, was that sort of, when you were doing your research and things, was there any positives that, we've obviously looked at sort of.
Completely. I mean, I guess my standpoint when I'm doing the research is that this stuff is all going to happen. It's all going to, it's going to come to us. We are going to be living this world. So, so I guess the main theme of the book is that you can't kind of hold back progress, but you can prepare for it. So I guess what the characters in the book are trying to do is to protect our privacy, protect democracy. That's kind of the slightly more serious theme in the book, because you can't stop this technology coming in, and a lot of it is hugely beneficial and will, really help us in our everyday lives. So it's not that I'm anti-tech. It's more that I just look at that kind of the other side of the flip side of it, and I guess I enhance the terror side of it. And
well, that's what makes the book. That that's the thing, isn't it? Is you want, when you're reading, you want to be, like I said, gripped. You want to be sort of scared. You want to be, that's the whole point of writing a thriller. If it wasn't thrilling, it wouldn't be a thriller.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, I know. I had to be really careful. It's not just people sitting around doing their legislation and boring jobs. MPs doing, let's make some legislation against. This. It'd be very dull.
So, you're working on. Have you finished book 3? Is that done, or are you sort of editing?
So I'm just in the middle of it. Yeah.
And how's that going?
It's going well, actually. Yeah, it's all plotted out, and I'm sort of midway through writing. So, so I'm super excited about it. I'm trying to make sure that book 3 could be a standalone as well, but then it's quite hard. So because then obviously everybody who read Palisade is sort of slightly left on a cliffhanger. So trying to navigate starting a book when you want it to be the start of a new book, but you also have to give something for all the people who have left on the edge of a cliff.
We've been waiting from November until next July. It's okay. We'll manage. We'll have to hold on there. I think I remember that with. Did you ever read The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo books?
Yeah.
So the second one has the most. I can't even remember it, but I remember it has an absolute. It's got the biggest cliffhanger. And I had got my books from the library because I worked in the library at the time, and I didn't have the third one at home, and I had to wait until the Monday to get it. And that's the thing, is that that's when you have a book like that you want to go, you think about, shall I drive and go and get it 14 miles? That's a good, that's, so I think that sort of cliffhanger bit is really, it's difficult as an author, but as a reader it's like, I really want to know what happens. And then I'm thinking, oh, well, I wish I'd read this. I wish I'd read the first one, and then, because now I need to go back. But that's okay, because I can read the first one before the third one comes out.
Yes, you can go get the backstory and how Connor and Colby originally get together.
Exactly, yeah. So did you have you thought any further ahead than book 3? Would there be any more, or is that going to be it?
Do you know? Yeah, I don't know. I keep finding little nuggets and thinking, oh, that might make a nice book 4. But I had also promised certain people around me that I would take a break after writing book 3 from writing for a bit, because I wrote these. Well, I certainly wrote Palisade and Divinity Games quite quickly together, and I also do a few other things as well. So I did promise I would take a little bit of a break
Have a little
from
rest.
writing, so we could actually just do some other things for a while.
Because we talked just before we came on about that you do nonfiction, you write nonfiction as well. So how does that differ, to your sort of nonfiction writing?
The nonfiction, I think, is more sort of this is a bizarrely an accidental thing. So I wrote a book, so under my given name of Louise Boland, I wrote a book called Bookshop Tours of Britain. And I have a little publishing company, very small, but I was visiting lots of different bookshops, and I thought, this would make a lovely travel guide. So that book is kind of a slow travel guide to Britain, navigating bookshop to bookshop, and it kind of looks at the different regions and what there is there to do, and and it's just a sort of my ode to my to bookshops, with my love of bookshops. And that book was more of a sort of an accidental book, but it's been a lovely thing that came out in 2020, and each year I do a revision, a revised edition, because bookshops open, unfortunately some close, but and there's been a new edition that came out just this Christmas, actually. This was why my other half is about ready to kill me, because I had 2 books come out at the same time. So the 4th edition of Bookshop Tours of Britain ended up coming out about a week before Palisade. So I was running around trying to promote both and also write Divinity Games at the same time. So
that's quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, so it has been a bit. But...
And I know that book because I worked in a bookshop briefly. And so I know I didn't even put you and that book together, but I can see it in my head with the map. And
that's right.
I know we're not supposed to be talking about that one, but now I'm fascinated now with that one. So did you with the research for that, did you visit a lot, some?
Yeah, I'd actually, when I'd started my little publishing business, I had actually gone and visited lots of different bookshops. I put the dog in the car and gone and driven around Britain, and just kind of done it as a half holiday, half half working, introducing bookshops to the little publishing house that I had. And then when we had lockdown and all the bookshops were closed, I thought, maybe it would be really lovely to do this book, because then it kind of reminds everybody that the bookshops are still there, and they might need it when they open again. And goodness knows I'm stuck at home. Goodness knows what else to do. So I had put it together. So I had probably visited around about 100 bookshops, and then I visited a few more. And then actually it was a lovely project, because I emailed all the bookshops, a lot of bookshops, and said, I've got these photos from when I visited, but I'm just a terrible photographer, and I was kind of standing there with a dog pulling me over here and chatting over here, and also trying to show the books that we publish at the same time. And so a lot of them sent photos of their shops that they felt so proud of, and some of the photos in the book. So I think we probably got around about 300 photos in the book of bookshops, but sometimes it's the bookshop owners, it's the staff, it's the bookshop dog, it's the front, it's the interior. So it's just this book just piled full of pictures of beautiful beautiful bookshops, and it's all about that's really
fascinating. I mean that's completely different, isn't it?
It is,
to this, so I can understand how that might be a challenge with,
yes, trying to do the promotion of social media. On the one hand, you've got these kind of gritty, sort of fast-moving thrillers. On the other, you've got, let's tour Britain, slow travel. But anyway, they're both lovely things. They're both
amazing. So did you always know you wanted to write? Because obviously you've had other careers, haven't you, to sort of lead up to this? Was it sort of something that obviously the bookshop book came out from in lockdown, and this one was before you started writing the first one in the series before that. So was that something you always wanted to do? And have you been sort of surprised by, you know, how quickly it's all sort of come together?
No, I mean, I turned to writing really late, actually, in life. I've always loved books. I've always been the sort of the kids sitting in the corner with the thumb in their mouth with a book in their hand. So I was always that sort of absolute bookworm as a child. And, you know, and I guess I love libraries, I love bookshops. And, you know, and then I don't know what, I can't remember what it was. I think there was some point I thought, oh, I don't know, why didn't I join a creative writing course? I don't even remember where the idea came from. And I started writing at that point, and then I just didn't really look back. I love writing now. So, yeah.
And you mentioned about sort of, you know, having that sort of support network with your writing of, you know, having other authors and other writers who sort of help you. Is that really important to you for your sort of?
Yeah. I think it is. I think it, particularly if you're a starting out writer, you know, there's the encouragement you get from other writers, and writers are super supportive of each other. And also sometimes you just need that voice of reason. You know, you can, because the trouble is if you show your writing to your other half or to your family, they'll go, oh, this is really brilliant, well done. But you know, if you show it to a writer, they'll go, it's good, but your characters here are a bit 2D, and the narrative arc is wrong here, and you know, you actually get some proper feedback. So yeah, and also, you know, when you have the highs and lows of, you know, being an author, having a writing group, actually, you know, you're almost like a little sort of emotional support group as well. So yeah, so I think it's super important.
You need that honesty, don't you? And because you, like you said about your character, you know, about the characters and how, you know, you had another character, but then you brought Esme in because actually people said, oh, she's a really good character, and made you look at it again and go, oh, actually, yeah, I really like her, and she's a great character. I really liked her. She's feisty and she's independent and she's, you know, like you say, ambitious. But I can see why, you know, people would sort of think of her as a good character, but actually maybe when you're developing it, you don't see that as much as somebody else from the outside. So yeah, I think that's really interesting.
That's true.
Yeah. So what was the most challenging part of Palisade to write?
It's a really good question. I think getting the ending right. Yeah, because it's sort of, yeah, there's a couple of kind of, I don't want to say without, I sort of play with where the book's going to go and where it's going to land. And I like to try and surprise the reader. So yeah, so getting the pacing of that right took quite a few rewrites.
Yeah. And is that something that, you know, the sort of editing, is that something you enjoy doing? Are you a sort of are you very much a, you know, you do the first draft and that is quite sort of a loose, and then you rewrite, or are you sort of on the page and you edit as you go?
No, I'm quite a lazy writer in that if I've created a chapter, I just don't want to ditch it because I've got the words. I don't want to lose the words. So I don't. But I do finesse and finesse and finesse. So actually getting the readability of it, you know, as good as possible, and so that it reads well is super important to me, as much as the pace and the thrills and the characters, making sure the characters are 3D, that kind of all matters to me. So yes, so normally, you know, once I've written a chapter, it's staying in.
Yeah.
It's come hell or high water. But I will finesse a lot. Yeah.
I guess as you sort of mentioned about you know, that you were going to have a break now. Do you think that's going to be easy when you've had such a full head of everything? Do you think there's going to be, have you sort of, you know, is there little inklings going on anywhere of like, you know, you've been writing in your phone or on your book and, you know,
well, there are actually a few other stories that I have. Shush, don't tell me out the half. But there are actually a few other stories that I've been thinking, oh, that would make a really good book. There aren't necessarily the Connor and Colby thrillers that just make other topics for really good thrillers or books or
Well, one day when you're bored, you know, you can pull one of them out.
Yeah.
What's your sort of favorite part of the process? What, you know, when you're, you know, is it the end? Is it the beginning? Is it, you know, is it sort of weaving those sort of stories into each other?
I think two things. I mean, for me, I love the writing. I absolutely love the writing process. I love that moment when you're walking in the woods and you go, oh my God, yeah, that's a great idea. And you want to rush home. And I was listening to a writer panel the other day, and there was an author, and she talked about this kind of impatience. You know, she'd have an idea and she had an impatience to write. And definitely that's something I empathize with. When I've got a story in my head and I've got characters and I've got something I want to say, then I have an impatience to write, and that I love. And that's one thing. And the other is, you know, sometimes someone reads your book, you know, and is lovely about it, like you, and you know, and sometimes, you know, sometimes you have people that say something and you just realize they've just totally got your book. They've got understood what it is you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And then that's just a lovely feeling, and kind of makes it all feel worthwhile, because it is, writing a book is a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hours.
Yeah, it's not something you just do overnight, is it? It's, you know, it's a process.
Yeah. So then when you hear someone who's kind of read it and enjoyed it, and you know, then you think, hey, do you know what? It's all worth it. Even if it's just for that one person who absolutely loved it and enjoyed it, it's worth it.
I guess, you know, it's the thing is, as I review books and read them, and you know, I do these, and I always think that, you know, whatever you think about a book, is it's important to look at, you know, the reasons, you know, somebody's gone to all that time to write and, you know, to go into it. So it might not be for you, but actually, you know, you don't need to say that. If you don't like it, just don't say anything.
Yes,
that's what I think. That's my own.
So I'm totally with that. Yeah.
So who, Lou, who's inspired you to write over the years? You know, you said you've always been that sort of, you know, the booky person. You know, who's been your sort of inspiration through your life for writing?
You mean in terms of authors, or?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I mean, I love Le Carre. I love the way he writes. You know, he has this sort of, I can't remember which book it was in. There was a piece that I read in. I remember reading a piece in one of his books, and it was a character. I'm sure lots of people will be screaming at me now, knowing perfectly well what book it is.
Somebody may pick it up in a minute, but like quite often we'll do that. I'll be chatting and I'll look at the comments, and somebody will have either Googled it or know the answer. So I'll have a look. I'll keep my eye out.
Someone who works for the Secret Service in the UK, or the Special Forces, and he is breaking into his own office because he wants to steal something from the filing cabinet in his own office. And he's not even really breaking in. He's just going into his office at a period when he shouldn't be there and taking a piece of paper out that he shouldn't be taking out. And it was so gripping. I was totally on the edge of my seat. And for me, that was just, wow, this is so clever that you can make something so mundane as walking into your own office and taking a piece of paper from a filing cabinet that you use every day so terrifying and gripping. And that's, I always remember that.
Yeah, I think, it's just how I think people, you know, authors how you think. Sometimes it can be the simplest of things, isn't it? You know, as I said at the beginning, I'm a big Agatha Christie fan, and you know, some of the things that she writes are so simple but so clever, and you think, oh, you know, I would die to write like that.
Exactly.
But that's why they're so, you know, both of those authors are so renowned and revered in their, you know, in their careers before they're writing.
Yes, and longevity, because that you know, that resonates with people however many years later.
Exactly, because they're both writing, you know, for, you know, a long time you know, before, you know, that, you know, sort of our, you know, that's so, but it's still relevant, isn't it? And when you think how much the world has changed, how we're talking from, you know, sort of, we're talking about AI and, you know, all those sorts of things, and then we go back to that sort of more, you know, somebody breaking into their office. It's just amazing, isn't it, that they've sort of stood that test of time. It'll be interesting. Well, I suppose we'll never know, but you know, it may be in 100 years' time whether they're still, but maybe they'll be even more revered because it feels so alien, because that was ever that basic.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of books that stand the test of time, sometimes it's because it's about relationships and
people.
Yeah, and people, and that doesn't change. Doesn't matter what technology we have around us, or you know, the challenges and the wonders of relationships with other people are, you know, something we all we all deal with every day.
Yeah, like you say, and that's never going to change, although it might change in the way it is. The basics will still be there.
Exactly.
So I'm just coming up to the hour. I said it would go quickly. What have you read anything recently that you would like to recommend to us? We always like.
Oh no, you put me on the spot now. I can't do that because I publish quite a few authors, and
I'm
actually in my office. I'm looking around.
Yeah, no, though that's difficult though. If you've got a sort of
okay, hang on then. Let me see. Oh my goodness,
maybe have several. If you've got several authors, just tell us them all.
Okay, that one there, it's brilliant. The Maiden of Florence by Catherine Metzer-Kappa.
Oh wow, that's a lovely cover. Yeah, no, so now basically, so you're promoting book 2, having a rest before finishing book 3, maybe having a rest, and then so have you got any events sort of lined up? Do you do festivals or anything?
Well, I just came back from the Reykjavik there from Iceland Noir, which was amazing. It was the most amazing, lovely little festival. Definitely recommend it to anyone. But now I'm trying to, because we need to finish this 3rd book. So now I'm trying to clear the decks and lock myself away somewhere to really get it finished.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, I wish you all the best with it.
Thank you.
And we'd love you to come back and talk about book 3 in the summer.
Very happily.
And so if you haven't read Lou's books, so book 1, sorry, Dirty Geese, did you say?
I do have it there, yeah. That's Dirty Geese.
Dirty Geese. I've got book 2, Palisade, and then book 3 is due out next July. So if you like a fast-paced political thriller with a real sort of interesting techie sort of AI bad person vibe, then this is the book for you. Thank you so much for joining us, Lou. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you. It's been lovely to be here.
Thank you everybody for watching, and join us again soon. Night everybody. Bye.